Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Tezenghausen. It is July 27th, and here are the most significant news stories of the day at this moment. Get ready. Putin met with Russian sailors, and based on the specific remarks he made at this meeting, the illness is progressing rapidly. Apparently, Putin is now telling absolutely every single person he sees that he wasn't the one who actually started the war. This is not a joke, literally everyone. He keeps saying the same thing. It certainly wasn't us who started it, it was all on them, but there are also some quite interesting points to look at there. Let's watch the video.
Важно то, что морская пехота, безусловно, важнейшая часть вооруженных сил в целом. И эффективно работает до сих пор на всех участках, где бы вы ни воевали. Это правда. Что касается, я не случайно сказал, что всегда впереди, и поэтому, конечно, вы наверняка видите, когда первыми заходите в освобожденные населенные пункты, видите, что там происходит или происходило. Вопрос, а почему так происходит? И что это из-за агрессии России, что ли, так называемая агрессия? Да нет, конечно. И агрессии-то никакой нет, потому что я уже много раз говорил, хочу еще раз подчеркнуть, ведь мы не начинали никакой войны. Мы только начали отвечать на те боевые действия, на эту войну, которую развязал киевский режим при поддержке Запада.
Listen, he's really completely unwell. So I have to ask, when you enter these newly liberated settlements, is that essentially because Russia started it all? No, that's not the reason. Yes, and there's no aggression at all, according to Vladimir Putin. This is what the so-called liberated settlements actually look like. Even the occupiers sitting there cannot even begin to understand what he's talking about. He really does keep telling everyone the same thing now. It wasn't us, we didn't start it. You know, it's like a nasty old man who grabs everyone by the sleeve at the entrance and says he's going to complain about some neighbors to social services. He keeps repeating the same thing to everyone. He said it at the last meeting too, that he wasn't the one who started it. That's right, it wasn't us. You started it. So, who was that jerk in the video shown on Russian TV channels on February 24th, 2022, the one who said, "I have made the decision to begin a special military operation"? Who is that guy? Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's about to get even more interesting. Let's start with the fact that yesterday Putin congratulated everyone on Navy Day, and he did it in an alleyway near the Admiralty. I think you've heard about this. This is not a joke. He didn't even dare to go out on a little boat. Excuse my French. He chickened out. He said that some ships are being built. No one else in the world has ships like these. Russia will show everyone. Did you see that shameful congratulation yesterday? Let's watch it together.
Здравствуйте, товарищи!
Здравия желаем, товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий Вооруженными силами Российской Федерации!
Поздравляю вас с Днем военного...
This is how Navy Day is celebrated in Russia now. This is what greatness looks like. An alleyway just in case, God forbid, a drone. Instead of a flag, a giant banner with a submarine drawn on it was hung up just in case one flew in. The main requirement was right there where Putin arrived. I think it was to have walls on all sides so that, God forbid, not a single drone could get to Putin. By the way, he was driven right up to the arch, slipped through the courtyards into this well where that banner was hanging. Did you see that? The celebration of Navy Day before the invasion of Ukraine, parades of ships, fireworks, and vessels resting at anchor. In short, it was truly beautiful. What new ships are being built? What are you talking about, Putin? Half of the Black Sea Fleet has been wiped out along with its flagship. They're all lying on the bottom now. The remnants fled to Novorossiysk. That's it. They abandoned the base, the main base of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. The Black Sea Fleet headquarters was destroyed by missiles. And there are no more parades now. By the way, did you see it? What kind of parade there was in Kaliningrad for Navy Day? Let me go ahead and show it to you right now. So this is the spectacular annual Navy Day parade held in Kaliningrad. But new ships are being built. Russia will show everyone soon. And of course, right at this specific point, at this very moment, I absolutely have to remind you that the only remaining Russian aircraft carrying cruiser was recently and completely scrapped for scrap metal. That's their greatness. Well, now we move on to the really juicy and interesting part. So what else did the Botox slug reveal to the entire world? All right then, here is the alternative version of history. According to Putin, you should try to comprehend the fundamental essence of what he just said.
После Великой Отечественной войны часть тех, кто воевал на стороне фашистской Германии, нацистской Германии, они оказались за океаном. И так называемые антироссийские, тогда антисоветские центры очень активно использовали тех, кто воевал на стороне нацистов, а потом и их как бы преемников, потомков. Но они же воевали на стороне нацистов. И вот, вы знаете, да, руководствуются вроде бы националистическими соображениями, интересами, как бы интересами Украины, украинского народа, но в основе-то лежит что? Нацистская идеология.
Well, what do you think? The Nazis fled across the ocean. To where exactly? To the US, apparently? All right, let's say so. They were actively used by anti-Soviet centers. These Nazis, then their descendants, and then his thought apparently jumps right away, for some reason, to Ukraine, which is not across the ocean. And Putin says supposedly it's in the interests of the people, but it's based on Nazi ideology. What? What exactly are you talking about right now? Nazis escaped across the vast ocean, anti-Soviet centers, bitter enemies, Nazism, sort of Ukraine, but they fought Nazism completely cut off from everything and so on. What is this stream of consciousness? How is this connected to the fact that you attacked Ukraine and made a mess of things? I don't know. Maybe someone should remind this idiot that Ukraine and Belarus suffered the most in the war against Nazism? Maybe remind him that in Ukraine, the few veterans who remained, who survived the war, there were only a handful, and some of them were killed by Russian missiles. Maybe he should be reminded of that. Do you understand what a mess he has in his head? He's absolutely insane. But that's not all. Now fasten your seatbelts and wipe your screens with holy water. A fable, Putin and the Tankman. Take a look.
Вы знаете, ну, секрета не раскрою, по-моему, даже когда-то говорил, еще в начале СВО сводку прочитал с поля боя. Ну, такой на поле боя перехват. Ну, вы с этим знакомы, да? Слушают ребята там и фиксируют. Танковая колонна входит в один из населенных пунктов Донбасса. Два украинских танкиста разговаривают друг с другом. И идет перехват. Я потом читаю. Значит, из дома, жилого дома, вышел какой-то мужчина в спортивном костюме. Просто вышел. Один из танкистов из пулемета его тут же положил. Застрелил, убил. Второй спрашивает, что ты творишь, зачем ты это сделал? И первый, который убил этого мужчину, говорит, да они все здесь преступники, бандиты, и промосковские, пророссийские. Не жалко. Ничего человек не сделал, просто вышел из своего дома посмотреть, как там. Ничего, в спортивном костюме. Убили и поехали дальше.
And honestly, I can already hear that specific question that so many of you are thinking right now. Oh, but how did they determine by radio interception that the person was wearing a tracksuit? But it's a radio interception, not a video interception. So how did they figure out that the person came out in a tracksuit? Where did this part of the story about the tracksuit come from? I think those who feed him these stories, well, that's quite a blunder. They couldn't have missed it. I mean, that's just sloppy work, really. But really, you do realize that he's not in his right mind. You know what this fragment of Putin with that story about the man in the tracksuit reminded me of? There was this one incident with Ukrainian tank operators and so on. I recently came across a fascinating fragment of an interview with that absolutely crazy Russian singer, Nadezhda Babkina. She has a story that sounds like it comes directly from the same collection. I think it's the very same people making up these characters. Let's take a look.
Смотрела один фрагментик, где украинский солдат спас нашего солдата сейчас в специальной военной операции. Месяц его держал спрятанным под прикрытием, кормил его, вылечивал и так далее. А потом они обнялись оба, порыдали и пошли, объединившись, воевать против черни.
And you do realize that on their TV, they tell all this with a straight face. Where a Ukrainian soldier hid a Russian soldier for a month, fed him, gave him water, and so on. So they hugged, burst into tears, and went off to fight against Cherny. It's strange he didn't add, they hugged, burst into tears, and went together to take Washington. So all of this is told completely seriously. But the most insane part of this meeting is coming up now. In the meantime, let me remind you, friends, to subscribe to my channel, subscribe to this channel, don't forget. It's important for the channel's growth. You can subscribe right now, no need to wait. We're fighting against Putin's propaganda, but together we'll be much more effective. So go ahead and subscribe. Well, now comes the most insane part, at least in my own opinion. Let's watch it. You know, if you remember, last time, somewhere from the stage, Putin was telling stories about some grandmothers knitting socks for the front. Now he's got kids involved. Women are busy knitting mittens and carefully weaving nets. But that's not the most important point. The main phrase is coming up now. Let's watch.
У нас закончится СВО, а это закончится, безусловно, рано или поздно. Но нам нужно вот это качество, это чувство единства надо сохранить. Вы знаете, я с некоторыми встречаюсь, с людьми, которые помогают вам в тылу, работают где-то там, женщины сети плетут, там, дети варежки плетут и так далее. Люди делают это от чистого сердца. Вот несколько раз я услышал удивительные слова. Вот СВО закончится, чем мы будем заниматься? То есть они настолько увлеклись этим, понимаете, настолько с душой это делают и чувствуют свою причастность к большому, огромному, нужному для России делу.
See what a funny story it is, how Putin is having fun. It's just so hilarious. Listen, he's just insane. He has even got young kids knitting mittens and earnestly asking him, Uncle Putin, what will we do in the future when the war is finally over? It really wouldn't surprise me at all if next time he claims that those kids knitting mittens and the old ladies knitting socks actually asked him to never end the war. Otherwise, what on earth will they have left to knit? What is this, a country of spiders or something? Do you hear the nonsense he's spouting? That the war helped people to feel deeply involved in something truly big and very important. Have you seen Russian cemeteries lately? I just find it hard to believe that tens of millions of Russians are actually watching him and listening to all of this. What are we going to do if the war finally ends and they still think he is sane? It's just phenomenal. By the way, he also said that Ukraine will sooner or later lose its western territories. But not now, Putin said. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20. Is he an idiot or what? I just don't get it. He started again with his story that some part was given by Stalin, some part by Lenin, that at some point parts of Ukraine's territory never actually belonged to it. How about we let him in on a secret? At some point parts of absolutely any country didn't belong to those countries. Literally any country. The problem is, if every country starts redrawing borders based on the principle of this used to be ours or this never was ours, the world will just descend into endless wars. That's exactly why this so-called history expert, this Botox Medusa, needs to be reminded that after World War II, the foundation of the international order became the principle of the inviolability of internationally recognized borders. Internationally recognized borders, which included the borders of Ukraine, not some search for borders from many long years or even centuries ago. By the way, if he truly believes that borders can be redrawn based on the principle of this used to be ours, then I have some very unfortunate news for Russia. Give Kaliningrad back to Germany, Vyborg and Karelia to Finland, St. Petersburg to Sweden, be so kind, where he once held some kind of pseudo-parade in an alleyway. Give the south of Sakhalin and the southern Kurils to Japan and to China. Just hand over half of Russia, including the territory of present-day Vladivostok. Poland and Lithuania take back Smolensk. The former Kazan Khanate goes to the Tatars. The peoples of the North Caucasus get their ancestral lands. You could go on listing like this forever. And if you dig even deeper, you could just return Moscow to the heirs of the Golden Horde and half of Russia's territory to the heirs of the Mongol Empire. Then there would be nothing left of Russia at all. By the way, this time, it looks like Grandpa has not just lost his marbles, but they've packed their bags and left for good, just gone off somewhere on their own. They stayed in Irkutsk, where he was recently. Do you know what else he said? Attention. Putin claimed that Russia was the only guarantor of Ukraine's territorial integrity. That's exactly why I want to take Donbas. I want to take the occupied Crimea. You know, honestly, I tried somehow, well, just to piece together at least some semblance of logic. How could Russia, which attacked Ukraine, possibly be the only guarantor of territorial integrity? I wasn't even able to begin to arrive at the same conclusions myself. Either it's some special medication, or it's really a case of someone completely losing their mind. But Ukraine and Ukrainians are truly performing a remarkable and heroic feat. And today I want to congratulate our medical workers on their professional holiday, on Medical Workers' Day. Including military medics as well, thank you for your daily work, for the lives you save. An eternal memory to the medics who gave their lives saving others. Today I came across a solemn photo of state awards being presented, not to the very medics themselves, but to their grieving families. 2 awards were given posthumously to the families of brave medics who lost their lives in the line of duty. One was to the family of Serhiy Dmitriev, a doctor at the Kherson Regional Infectious Diseases Hospital. He died on July 2nd this year at his workplace, saving a patient's life. The Order for Courage, 3rd class, was presented to the family of Kristina Slavska, a paramedic with the Emergency Medical Service from Sumy region. She died while transporting wounded people to the hospital, and on that same day, her husband, who served in the National Police of Ukraine, was also killed. We honor the eternal memory of all the heroic Ukrainian medical professionals who gave their lives while saving others. And today, on this Medical Workers' Day, we are launching a very fitting and vital fundraiser to support the urgent needs of the 1st Separate Medical Battalion for our dedicated combat medics. They recorded a video message for you. Please take a look.
Яке найкраще привітання може бути до Дня медика?
Закриті збори першого медичного.
Допомога нашому батальйону.
А чому?
Тому що ми постійно розвиваємось, відкриваємо нові локації, поранених стає все більше і більше, і допомога нам потрібна завжди.
Це медичні фахівці, які доєднуються до нашого батальйону.
А я думаю, нескінченний запас кави.
Насамперед, це постійна ваша підтримка нашого батальйону.
Донат. 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 Донат.
Донат.
Донат.
А чому?
Ну, бо ваші донати допомагають нам рятувати життя.
Let's support our medics, our angels, our guardians. They don't reach out often, but when they do, it means it's truly needed. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. There are mono, private, and PayPal options for those who want to help from abroad. And the QR code in the corner also leads to the fundraiser. That's for those of you watching me on other channels. And your donation to our medics directly saves someone's life. Unfortunately, from talking about bright and strong people, we have to move on to inhumans again. Apparently in Russia there's some kind of flare-up, maybe seasonal, I don't know. Today, State Duma Speaker Volodin shouted Russia Putin victory 5 times from the podium. You know, he probably honestly wanted the State Duma deputies to start shouting out those words too, but they just stood up from their seats and offered Volodin a long round of applause. Not this time, Volodin, not this time. And have you noticed that the harder Ukraine strikes, the more nonsense they start spouting in the Russian Federation? By the way, it was the same in Nazi Germany right before the final defeat of the Hitler regime. Exactly the same. Well, let's continue the parade of lunatics. Russia will seek compensation from Europe for the damage it suffered from the war with Ukraine, said Alexei Chepa, first deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee on International Affairs. So Russia, having attacked Ukraine, they will now seek compensation from Europe for being defeated in the conflict by Ukraine. Oh my goodness, how absolutely disgraceful. Chepa just went and completely undermined the whole propaganda narrative. So much for great and invincible Russia. And now look, whining about compensation. Oh dear, we got beaten. Give us compensation. Just you wait. This is only the beginning. Now let's move on to the good. Let's move on to the news. Specialists from the GUR burned a launcher and a radar station of the Triumph S-400 complex in Crimea. What's important here is that not only was the S-400 launcher destroyed, but also the radar station. And obviously the radar station is much more interesting in this story. So the loss of the launcher is painful, one less vehicle, fewer missiles. But manufacturing a brand new launcher is considerably more straightforward than replacing an exceptionally intricate and complex radar system. The GUR fighters did a great job burning it, and in Sarapul, as a result of a UAV attack, a Rosreserve oil depot is on fire. Horizon is a strategic closed-type facility where massive quantities of gasoline and diesel were stored, and now everything is engulfed in a massive inferno. This base is specifically designed for the long-term storage of fuel reserves in case of emergencies or military needs. But you see, it all makes sense. It is for emergencies. Well, now the drones have arrived on the scene, and you certainly have an emergency situation. And one more piece of news that I couldn't pass by. It seems that in every episode we have news about artificial intelligence, or more precisely, about its dangers. Artificial intelligence provided recipes for making chemical weapons and poisons to hundreds of users. Lately, such news has been appearing more and more often. Just recently, everyone was alarmed when an agent from OpenAI escaped from the isolated environment where it had been placed to solve cyber tasks. Not only did it escape, but it also connected to the internet and hacked equipment. Well, here the question is more ethical. That is, this agent appeared after the update of the popular artificial intelligence chatbot, ChatGPT-5. Hundreds of users around the world began to approach it with requests about creating and using biological weapons. And I would too. According to a recent report published by the Wall Street Journal, so artificial intelligence described the exact methods and the specific steps required to create it. Some of the answers were so simple that even a student in middle school could use them. Sources from the Wall Street Journal claim that professional biologists and international terrorism experts called some of the answers from ChatGPT remarkably and deadly accurate. Wow. Some particularly curious users tried to extract detailed information from ChatGPT about various methods of spreading infectious pathogens. One of the users was specifically interested in the process of how to modify the measles virus, so that an outbreak of the disease would become resistant to the vaccine. In general, there were many questions about creating banned, highly toxic substances. It seems that the developers have now closed this loophole. Let me remind you, in the US, there are simply no laws that require companies working with artificial intelligence to restrict such requests or disclose information. Well, the legislative framework is being developed now. I checked. I asked the chat about one of the highly toxic substances, and now the chat responds that it can't give me an answer. And in general, it's better not to be interested in such things. But you know, the threat from ChatGPT is still somewhere in the distant future. But the threat from a certain bold, underground individual who is pure scum is here and now. And right here and now, at this very moment, it is killing Ukrainians. I think that first, the entire civilized world should confront and deal with this threat, and then we can address the others. Well, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, subscribe to this channel, don't forget. Let's provide much-needed support to our medics from the 1st Separate Medical Battalion, who serve as our guardian angels. The link to donate is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.